which is housed in suitcases. And this is participating in lots of ways. Certainly participating in terms of how the work itself is often interactive, and it's for people to pick up and use, like as books are, even though they're sometimes experiment with the concept of a book in some way. We also mentor young artists. Any artist under the age of 25 could apply to us through an open call for funding to make a suitcase, and the results of that are going to be exhibited at the Great North Museum in a couple of months' time. But this project is sort of toured all over the place. There are about five artists involved. We take it all over the place. We make work. It's very challenging in terms of my own practice and making work, but also in terms of the way that we interact with the young people. It's set up in almost as an idealized version of what I was just talking about, where, because it's one-to-one. So I work with this particular young person. They come to me and say, I want to do this, and then they can, as part of some of their budget, they can buy my time to help them, to enable them to do it. They can tell me what they want, and then I can help them to achieve that and think about how to tailor it to an individual person in terms of developing them. So I can think exactly how does that individual want to be challenged in this particular situation. And I think that works really well. Yeah. So I have to mention the nomadic village, because two fellow nomads are here today. This was a way in which the project challenged me, I suppose. So each of us, we take the museum with us places, to book fairs and to exhibitions. We exhibit all over the place. And I took it to a field in Wolston, in Camp Durham, for 10 days, where there were 20, how many were there of us? 32. Yeah.
I think maximum 47, I think, on the weekend.
Was there 47? Yeah, when there were too many. And we all set up our work in our studios and our practice in a temporary art settlement in a village. And I was pushed in directions I never thought I would go in, really. I ended up, at the end of the week, standing in the middle of a field with a dancer doing a collaborative performance. How amazing is that? And I think it also went sort of beyond the original idea of the project, and other people were challenged as well. So lots of the artists made books and bought them, and they'll become part of the museum as well. And I went into the local school as well and made books for children in the school. Yeah. That was sort of challenging for them, but in a good way. So I went in and taught them how to make a very simple folded book. And they'd obviously never done it before, but they really enjoyed it. You know, it was great. Yeah, this is Queen's Hall in Hexham. At Queen's Hall, I run a writers group for New Writing North, one of the organisations that have set up today for young writers, and I think it's another positive example of a participatory arts project that involves young people. So there was a series of summer schools that ran last year, and they worked with a different writer on each day, and there seemed to be a lot of interest from these young people in writing, and that then turned itself into regular groups that run. It all seemed very organic. I don't know if there were lots of things going on in the background that I wasn't aware of. It all seemed very organic to me, and there's a regular group that runs every 2 weeks. There's some flyers on the table that Sharon's brought along. But one of the things that's really functional about this project is that, again, it looks at the specific needs of the young people. So as a writer leading the group, I'm given a lot of freedom as to what I'm expected to do. I'm given broader goals, as in we want them to do this, but I'm not told you have to do this, and this, and then you have to, do all of these or other things and present it in this particular way on this day. and that, I suppose, takes quite a lot of trust from New Writing North, the organisation, to the writers that run the groups. But amazingly, it doesn't mean we do nothing. You know, we're writing a play at the moment, and that's an amazing thing. They've written a play. They also they put on events and performances. They have an online magazine which is really successful. It's quite quickly become one of the leading places for young people to be published in the UK. They edit it, they run it, they set it up. It was their idea. All of this stuff comes from them. So in many ways, sort of letting go and letting the participants say what they need and what they want is resulted in this very fruitful situation. So yeah, I'm not going to get on the heads. I'm just going to quickly finish Tales. Yeah, the last one I'll talk about is Brass Boot, which is something I'm right in the middle of at the moment. I have the launch for one of the main parts of it on Friday. What is it? It's a project that involves me working with it's a commission to link the Durham Brass Festival and Durham Book Festival. I'm working with community groups in County Durham to make digital content. One's a writers group, and we've been making digital literature, so stories that involve video, images, audio. They're put together and structured in different ways because they can be linked in different ways and things. And I've also been working with a brass band as well, and in Manchester. So I've been working in Easington and Manchester with two very different communities to make digital content, which is a response to a long poem that I wrote. This sounds really complicated. It's basically a book. If I gave you it, it would be a book. You would understand it very easily. So the front of it is a long poem that I wrote, which is a series of 50 provocations, but it hangs together as a poem as well. And I took this along to each of the groups, and I just presented them with that. So this is how would you like to respond? And I think what's interesting in terms of the challenge question with these groups is that so here's me going along and asking them how to respond. The way that it worked out with both groups is completely different. The writers wanted to push themselves and do something new that they'd never done before with technology. We could make this or that. And actually, the individual writers all went off in their own direction and produced pieces of work. And I was more just someone who was there who was really just giving them permission to do it. I was helped supporting them in terms of the technical expertise they might need, but they challenged themselves in that way that I was talking about. Another group that had done that before as well. The brass band didn't want to be challenged. They didn't really want to engage in that way at all. They wanted to play their musical instruments. And they were happy for me to do whatever I wanted, but they didn't want me to challenge them. They didn't want to sit and write with me. They didn't want to make art. They wanted to blow a trumpet. That was what they did twice a week. So they just let me, I just hung around with them really, and took photographs, recorded them. And I suppose it probably didn't challenge them at all. So here's a project where there's two groups that I've worked with. They've both been recruited in exactly the same way. There's the same framework behind it. But the way in which the two groups were challenged was very, very different. Again. And I think that I was certainly challenged with this project. Next Monday, I'm doing a performance at the Sage that I've done with two musicians, which involves audio and video and spoken word and song. Yeah, that's a challenge for me as an artist. Like how do I do that? What do I do? Yeah, so to finish off, I've gone slightly over as well, so it's been relevant. Yeah, I think that if I got on to talk about ownership, then I was going to talk about what the participants, that's also something that varies. So I suppose the way that I approach it is that it's about the participants, about the people that I'm working with. It's something which I take from the world of computer design, because if you're going to design a computer system, if you stand and from a position of here, me on the stage and you guys down there. If I'm standing up here and saying this is what you want this computer system to do, then the chances are that it will work in the right way. But if I come and meet you and talk to you and find out what you want, then I can go and make something which is helpful for you. So it's taking this idea and then applying it to an arts practice. It's probably what I've done without even realising that I've been doing it. It's just because that's been the way that I've worked anyway. When I've been working, creating interfaces for computers for people to use. Yeah, so it's very bespoke, it's adaptable, it's user-centered, it's flexible, and all these sort of things really. And I think the way that I would think about ownership as well would be very, very similar if I'd talk about that. That was my other topic. Yeah, and that's not a bad thing for things to be open and not to have to be tied down at the beginning of the project. But I understand the need for that, for funders and organisations, and some structure is good as well, I would say. Yeah, the reason I asked you to flip the coin was that then you controlled what I did. But clearly I did this because I'm standing here, people are recording me, I'm talking about me, I'm talking about my work. But I wouldn't have done what I did if you hadn't done that. And sometimes it's like that for me when I'm doing a piece of work. So when I present this piece of work on Friday, it's mine, it's clearly my work. The other people are acknowledged in an appropriate way. But I wouldn't have done it if those other people hadn't been there. I would have done something else entirely different. And I actually would have chosen the other strand to the presentation because yeah. But thank you. And thank you for listening.
Thanks, Stevie. Now, we're at 4:10. We're going to have a little break. Is that still... Pardon? It's 4:10 now.
Maybe.
No, it's 5:10, wasn't it?
What time is it? Oh, my watch has gone.
Have you been an hour out?
It's 2 minutes to 5.
Okay, we'll have should we just say a 5-minute break and then, because we've got an awful lot of time. So there's some tea, coffee, and it'll be 5:15 by then, so we'll be back.
Everyone talks, participating in other ways as well.
Sorry.
Tweet it.